Hi guys, so this is my stretching exercises to help splits. So the first one I'm going to go for is just like my go-to kind of hamstring warming up stretch. So I lean forwards, try and touch the floor, try and reach through my legs, but also keeping my feet turned out, making sure my legs are straight. Sometimes I bounce from side to side on my legs just to make sure that they get nice and warmed up each leg. So that's the first stretch. Also, I've done it facing the side just so you can see, trying to reach through. Obviously, the more and more you do it, the further and further you're going to get to reach into the back. Okay, so the next stretch is basically the same, but I do it with my legs together, so it's like a complete standing fold of the body. Again, trying to get your legs as straight as possible, making sure that your arms are going past your legs. You can also hold your legs to begin with just to get a proper stretch. When you do it, you can bend your knees, hold your knees really tight, and then slowly try and stretch your legs. So for the next stretch, you're going to get a higher surface, put your knees up on the higher surface, bend your knees, and then hold each one of your feet with your hands and just slowly try and pull your feet towards you. This is going to stretch out your hip flexors, bit of quads as well. Just make sure you're pushing your hips down into the floor as you're doing it. Not pulling too far though, because you don't want to hurt your knees and you don't want to hurt your hips as well. I also did one leg and then swapped to the other leg as well. So for the next stretch, you're going to use your higher surface again. I like to use a roller. You just lay on it, you pull one knee up, other leg goes straight. It really stretches out your hips as well, so you can really feel a good stretch there. Just make sure that you're trying to keep your hips as square as possible, not letting them twist round or anything like that. So I held one leg and then I stopped and swapped to the other leg. Okay, so the next stretch is just a simple push up of your body while you're laying on your stomach. Make sure you're trying to get your hips using as much of the work as possible and not so much on your back, because otherwise it just turns into a back stretch instead of a hip stretch. Trying to push your shoulders all the way back as much as you can and just hold for maybe 20 to 30 seconds. So for the next stretch, we're just going to do a kneeling stretch. So you have your straight leg in front of you, you're just going to try and lean as far forward as you can, reaching past your front foot. You can do this with a pointed foot at the front, but if you want to feel a further stretch, you're going to try and flex your foot and then have a stretch there. Make sure you're doing both legs, don't want to be uneven. And also make sure you're trying to keep your hips square and your back as flat as possible. Okay, so next we're going to do our forward lunges. When you forwards lunge, make sure that your front knee is directly in line with your ankle to make sure that you're getting the proper stretch and a proper technique of your split. Try and keep your hips nice and square. Try and stretch your back leg if you can. Make sure it's pointing down, not either one side or the other. And then just try and hold it with your hands off the floor if you can to feel a bit more of a stretch. The next thing I'm doing is also I'm pushing my hips forwards, because it stretches your hip flexors more than just doing the normal lunge. So you're just going to hold that for a little bit and then you're going to go back into your normal lunge, and then make sure you're also doing your other leg. Side lunges next. So when you lunge to the side, at first you want to try and have your hips in line. So if this means your bottom is not on the floor, that's absolutely fine. Make sure you have your shoulders behind your body, sitting up nice and tall. You can also do it with a flex foot if you want to, and then you can also move your foot slightly so you're sitting on the floor, and then you're going to try and lean forwards over your leg. Once you've held it, I hold it for around 10 to 20 seconds, depending on how much I want to stretch for, and then I'll swap and do the other leg. Next stretch is just going to be a butterfly stretch. So you're going to be sitting up nice and tall, bouncing your knees up and down gently. Make sure you don't bounce them too fast or too big, just because otherwise it's going to do damage to muscles instead of stretching them out. I've also taken a little video from the side just so you can see the back, making sure my back's nice and flat. And then also you're going to do a leaning forward stretch that you'll see in a minute. You stretch up nice and tall, and then you're going to lean all the way over, but making sure your back is flat. So if that means your hands are not on the floor, that's fine. It's using lots of different muscles to help stretch. And we're gonna do a bent leg split position. So you're gonna have your leg bent right up, so it's a complete bend of your leg. Just try and hold that for a little bit, making sure your hips are down, making sure they're square. Try and stretch your back leg as well if possible. If that's quite easy, you can keep trying to move your leg further and further out so it ends up in like a right angle shape. Just make sure that you're keeping your hips square. So if your hips are not square, just move your leg back and then try again. And then you're gonna also do your other leg. So the next one, we're just going to do a simple tummy frog stretch. So this one you can do laying, but then you can also do where you push up onto your elbows, or you can do another one where you push up onto your hands. Try and push as far up as possible and try and feel the stretch. So the next element of that would be to stretch one leg at a time. It's getting you closer and closer to a box split shape as you're stretching one of your legs. Just make sure that your knees are not facing into the floor, they're facing forwards because it's a box split. Make sure you swap and you do both legs. Now for the actual split, you're going to try and do a proper split position. Go as far as you can, but make sure your hips stay nice and square, because the squarer you keep your hips now, the better it will be for your hips when you're doing your split, when you can actually reach the floor. Try and do it with your opposite arm in front and your same arm of the front leg to the side. Just hold it for as long as you can, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then you can swap and do the other leg. So now you're going to need a chair. You're going to try and put your leg up on the chair, have your leg straight first if possible, and then you're going to try and push up, and you can try and take your hands off and hold it there. I do roughly 10 seconds hands on, 10 seconds hands off the leg. And then you can also do a bent leg where you bend it, hold exactly the same, 10 seconds on the leg, 10 seconds off the leg, and then you swap legs. So the final thing we're going to do is you're going to do a wall split. So for the wall split, you can have your leg as close or as far away from the wall as you want. Just make sure you're trying to push both of your hips equally into the wall, stretching both legs, making sure you can do it with a pointed foot, or you can tuck your toes under and do it with like a flex foot with your toes against the wall. Make sure you're doing both legs as well, because it's important to stretch both and not just one. Of the split exercises that I do regularly, just to try and make sure that I'm maintaining a good split position. If you're practicing them at home, just make sure you're being really safe. Don't do anything that's going to overstretch you and possibly hurt yourself. So I tend to hold most of the stretches for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, just because I've been doing them for quite a long time. But if you want, you can gradually build it up, so you can do 10 seconds 3 times, or you can do 20 seconds and then 10 and stuff like that. So just gradually try and build them up. But hopefully the exercises were helpful.